Hey guys, today we're back here on the Hunter of the Wild, and this time, in collaboration with none other than Hell's Hunting, we're gonna be going over the best locations and the best times to hunt every single of the new species here on the new Scotland Reserve. Now guys, if you find this kind of content useful, please consider subscribing to the channel, and don't forget to also go check out Hell's Hunting channel, because she's a great content creator and also a fantastic guide maker. Now let's get into the video. So we're gonna start by going over the first of the 5 new species that are included with this update, which is the American mink. The American mink is one of the 3 most elite species here on Scotland, quite similar to the pine marten. But what makes these minks truly unique is the fact that they are an aquatic animal that is actually able to swim in game. They are honestly a beautiful species. You know, the American mink is a very small class 1 species that goes up to level 5 medium and makes diamond with a score of exactly 151. Their weight ranges from about 1 kilo to 1.6 kilos in the case of the males, while the females typically weigh around or below 1 kilogram. They are definitely quite light. I really think these minks are one of the most interesting species present here in Scotland, not only because they are aquatic, but also because the potential to see some very nice rares on these guys is quite high. Just imagine how cool an albino mink would look. Man, just the thought of eventually getting one of these guys really motivates me to keep hunting them, although I have to say, the minks are very far from being easy to hunt. Hunting these minks is honestly a challenge. They are very small animals, hard to see, and they tend to move around the densest areas that you can possibly find on this map. Although the advantage is that since they are aquatic, you are mostly gonna find them close to the water. For example, this entire river tends to have a lot of minks. This entire river, but it's also possible to find them on some other locations, like on these swamps up here, and also on a couple of other lakes, like these two. What I would suggest you doing in order to easily find and spot these minks is to simply start by moving within their home range, around any of these areas, and preferably do so during any of their 2 feed times, which are from midnight to 300 and from 300 to 600. Why during their feed times? Well, the advantage of hunting them during their feed times is that these minks normally feed on the water, on the surface, where you can easily spot them. You can certainly also hunt them while they are resting during the day, but just keep in mind that they'll be much harder to spot since they tend to rest on very dense areas.
The next species we are going to be going over is the Eurasian pine marten. The pine marten is such a cool addition to the game and is one of the 3 mustelid species included with the Scotland Reserve. They are a class 1 species and have a max level of 5 medium and make diamond with a trophy score of 208. When looking for diamonds of this species, you will want to be looking for tracks with a 1 to 2 kilogram weight estimate. Now personally, I love the way that these pine martens look. I would say that the developers really nailed their models. They look extremely similar to their real-life counterparts, and the quality of the fur is very nice. While we don't know much about what rares we can expect to see for the pine martens, I am still very excited to hunt them, since their models and common fur variations are quite stunning. They are also quite fast in game and like to dart around from place to place, so it's definitely a good thing that you don't have to hit a vital on these guys. Simply shooting them with the .22 or a shotgun will work just like any other small game species. Hunting the pine martens can be a real challenge for anyone that isn't used to targeting smaller game species. Man, are they fast! And while they are very weak, being able to land a shot on them can be quite complicated. The first tip that I give you when hunting these martens is to take a very cautious approach and try to avoid running if you are tracking one. You know, these martens have very sharp senses and can easily spook if you're not being mindful. The second tip I'll give you is to pay close attention to their tracks and calls. They are so small that you are rarely ever going to spot them before either hearing them or finding a track, so be on the lookout. Fortunately, they are quite vocal, so you'll most likely know if you are close to one. And last but not least, you have to be sure to look for them within their home range. The habitat of this species is the entire central area of the reserve. So as long as you move within this area, you have a very good chance at running across one.
By the way guys, if you wanna get access to every single of the hotspot maps for Scotland, as well as for every single hotspot map in the game, I would definitely recommend you joining my Discord server. You can find the link on the description below. You know, once you join the server, make sure to choose the Call of the Wild role, and then simply go to the hotspot map section, where you'll be able to see every single hotspot map for every single species on the entire game.
Now, the next species we are going to go over is the Eurasian woodcock. The Eurasian woodcock is definitely one of the most anticipated new species that are included on the Scotland Reserve. They are a Class 1 species that goes up to level 3 very easy, and they make diamond with a trophy rating of 41.03. Keep in mind that it is the females of this species that make diamond. For me personally, the woodcocks are the most exciting species coming with Scotland. Their models are absolutely beautiful, the details of their feathers is very high quality, and the animations that the devs gave them are some of the most unique that we've ever seen in game, especially when they do the little dance while they're on the ground. It really makes you want to take your time while approaching them to get close enough to see them while they're doing this little animation. They also nailed the audio cues for these little birds, and they are without a doubt one of the most unique species we have seen added to Call of the Wild. When it comes to hunting the woodcock, I would recommend you firstly choose an appropriate weapon to ethically hunt Class 1 species, and in this case I would suggest using a shotgun like the 12 gauge cotw or the new Benelhag 12 gauge, and make sure you are using birdshot. You then want to start exploring their home range, this entire region right here. The distribution of their population is quite dense, which means you can expect to find a good number of them in a short amount of time. However, it's still important to note that, just as with any other bird species, being patient and paying attention to the location of their calls and tracks is essential to having success while hunting them. Keep in mind that the max weight estimate for these woodcocks is 0.38 to 0.43 kilograms, which you can tell by opening up your map and looking at this little box right here. So make sure to be on the lookout for tracks with this weight estimate when trying to find a diamond of this species.
Alright guys, the next species we're gonna cover on this guide is the red grouse. The red grouses are another of the 5 new species that are included here on Scotland, but in contrast with UR4, these guys are not really that unique, since their similarity with the willow ptarmigans is something that can't be ignored. You know, for a long time the red grouse was considered exactly the same species as the willow ptarmigan, although recently, mainly due to some physical differences, they are now considered a completely separate species that is present exclusively on both the United Kingdom and on Ireland. You know, inside the game, while very similar, the model of the red grouse is actually a bit different to the model of the willow ptarmigan. First of all, their legs are slightly longer and the color of their plumage presents some tones that aren't present on the ptarmigan feathers. In my opinion, these red grouses, despite being very similar to the ptarmigans, are still unique enough to be considered an exciting species to hunt, and especially because the rares they have are quite different to the ones we see on the ptarmigans. For example, we know the red grouses can spawn as piebbles and leucistics, while the willow ptarmigans can spawn as whites and etheristics. The audio cues for these species are also slightly different to the ones produced by the ptarmigans, and their poses inside the trophy lodge are closest to the poses you would typically see for the other grouse species. Definitely quite different to the poses on the willow ptarmigans and rock ptarmigans. You know, hunting these red grouses can be just as challenging as hunting similar species. Their flocks are relatively small, reaching a maximum size of about 6 birds, and their population is quite spread out around their home range, meaning they aren't as easy to find as the woodcocks, for example. The strategy to hunt these guys is actually quite similar to a strategy we suggested you using to hunt the woodcocks. Simply start by moving within their habitat, which in this case is the entire northern section of the reserve. It is important to mention that these grouses are a class 1 species that also goes up to level 3 very easy, which means that carrying a shotgun with you is crucial. The max weight estimate for these red grouses is 0.68 to 0.75 kilos, so make sure to pay attention to every single track with the goal of finding these max estimates. And something interesting is that apparently, in contrast with the willow ptarmigans, only the male red grouses are able to make diamond, so keep that in mind.
Now the next species on the roster is the European badger. What can I say? These little guys absolutely had to be here in Scotland since they are so commonly found here, and man did the developers do this staple species justice. The badger is a class 2 species that goes up to level 5 medium and makes diamond with a trophy score of 16. From what I've seen, it's the males of the species that make diamond. When looking for a diamond of this species, you're also going to want to follow tracks with a 14 to 17 kilogram weight estimate. As far as my personal opinion on them, man, am I impressed. They look almost identical to how they look in real life, and the same can be said about how they behave. It is also so cool to see another animal species come to the game with the burrowing mechanic. But don't worry, these guys do have zones separate from their burrows, so hunting them should be way easier in comparison to the European rabbits. I have also seen a couple of their rare fur variations, and they are absolutely stunning. I know that they have earthristic, dilute, and piebald, but unfortunately I don't know if they have more than that. I can imagine we will see something like albino and melanistic as well. However, the piebalds for these guys really remind me of the piebald blackbutt, which probably makes this rare one of my most wanted in the game right now. Now, when it comes to hunting these badgers, the most important thing to note is that it's only possible to hunt them while they're feeding, since they seem to hide in their burrows during their resting time. Fortunately, these guys have multiple feeding times during the day and night. I'd personally recommend you focus on hunting them during their morning feed time, which runs from 6 to 10, or their evening feed time, which runs from 18 to 21. Seeing as these badgers are much bigger in comparison to the 4 other new species, spotting them is not nearly as hard. The only thing you have to do to find them is to move within their home range. The areas you can find the badger are quite similar to that of the woodcock, with the main difference being that they are also present around the center of the reserve. They also share the same locations as the capercaillies, as you can see here on this map. So next up on the list we have the wild boar. As you probably already know, the wild boar is the new great one that is included with this update. These guys are actually the second biggest species found here in Scotland, since they are a class 5 species and they reach a max level of 5 medium. The wild boar are only located on the southern part of the reserve, which makes hunting them on this map incredibly easy. There are multiple bodies of water within the region where it's possible to find wild boar drink zones during their drink time, which is 0 to 300, as well as many nice open areas where the boars tend to feed. This opens the possibility for hunting and grinding them using feeders by placing them in some of these areas. If you are looking to grind the Great One boar on this map, I would first recommend you to set the time to 1:30 to 2 a.m., search until the end of their drink time, which is 3 a.m., and find the majority of your zones. While hunting around, prioritize setting up on zones with multiple males, good visibility, and places where you can target multiple herds at one time. When you find a zone that meets this criteria, set up a tent at least 250 meters away from the zone and place a hunting structure of your choosing. When it comes to herd management, you'll want to focus on shooting down everything in exterior zones to level 1s, level 2s, and in some instances, the level 3s with a weight estimate of 78 to 132 kilograms. While hunting the wild boar drink zones, you may notice that some of these areas can be quite difficult to hunt due to the high amount of vegetation in them, especially on this creek. If you are lucky enough, the number of zones that you have in these difficult areas won't be more than a couple, but it's definitely possible to have quite a few in them. Using feeders on this map very well might be the way to grind for the Great One wild boar. Using the bait barrels during their feed times can be quite effective, and these barrels will let you attract all of the wild boars present in a 400 meter radius, making it possible to find and shoot a good number of boar in a single area. And an added bonus, they feed during the day. This is a great way to avoid having to hunt them in the dark and to have better visibility, since you can choose whatever spot you want to place these feeders.
Now guys, when it comes to the rest of the species present on this reserve, so far we have gone over 6 species in total, which means there are another 11 species that you can also find here on Scotland. Every single of these remaining species is a repeat, you can also find them on other reserves, and they are certainly not as exciting to hunt as the new species. But we're still gonna quickly go over their locations, especially when it comes to the roe deer and the red deer, since these two have been completely remastered. Alright, so first of all, when it comes to the red deer, these guys actually share the exact same home range with the red grouses and the feral goats, which means you're gonna be able to find them drinking on every single lake within the northern part of the reserve. All these lakes. Here's the hotspot map, for reference. Now going over the roe deer have also gotten a complete remaster. They look amazing, and they share the exact same locations with the pine marten and the sika deer, so it's possible to find their drink zones from 1400 to 1700 at any of the lakes that are within the central section of the reserve, as you can see on this hotspot map. Then, when it comes to the rest of the species, we also have the fallow deer, which share the exact same home range with the wild boars and the pheasants, essentially the southern part of the reserve. You can find them drinking at any of these lakes. And then we also have the red fox, which basically cover both the central part of the reserve and the northern part of the map, all this area. So anyway guys, that's gonna be it for today's guide. I really hope it helps you, and I really hope you enjoyed this collaboration with Hell's Hunting, which by the way I would definitely recommend you checking out and subscribe to her channel. She's a great content creator and a great guide maker. Thank you so much for watching, and see you next time.